Okay.
Okay. So briefly, what I wanted to review is some of the webs that have got us caught up into these different titles of nobility. Um, and just to give a brief overview here, we have the U.S. bankruptcy, one of the many U.S. bankruptcies from 1933. From there, you have the House Joint Resolution, of 192 and Public Law 89-719.6, as well as Executive Orders 6073, 6102, 6111, and 6260.712. And then, of course, you also can see there United States Code and the UCC, which is the Uniform Commercial Code. So the Uniform Commercial Code is what the public is operating under. So if you want to figure out how to get remedy when operating in the public, then I would suggest studying the Uniform Commercial Code, which falls under admiralty or maritime law. Also, the Cestui Que Vie Act of 1666, which is also the Cestui Que Trust. And then, of course, we want to have basic understanding of trust law and contract law. So first, starting with the U.S. bankruptcy in 1933. Now, if you look at the bottom right, I did put the link there of a website where you all can go to read, to have a lot of in-depth study in regards to everything that we're going to talk about this evening. But in 1913, President Wilson signed the Federal Reserve Act into effect, which is currently the central bank that we're under. We're under the federal government. 8 years later, in 1921, he also passed the Maternity Act, which forced every birth to be registered with the state. And so they were kind of pretty much setting up stepping stones for the bankruptcy in 1933. So when the U.S. went bankrupt in 1933, which of course wasn't the first time, what they did was forced everyone to turn in their silver and their gold. Now, according to, let me find the right title. I have my notes here. According to the U.S. Constitution, gold and silver is considered the only legal tender of payment to actually cancel off debts. And we're going to review that again a little bit later. But when they removed that, they allowed the Federal Reserve, which is a private institution, to come in to transact promissory notes, because that's all our dollars are. If you look up a promissory note or debt note, it's pretty much an IOU. So all we're doing when we're using this money is discharging debts using a private promissory note, which is also the reason why we cannot counterfeit dollar bills, because it's a private currency. It's a private promissory note. And back in the day, we used to be able to write our own promissory notes, which is essentially what you do when you take out any loans, when you take out any mortgages, when you do any type of financial transactions where you're expected to pay the bulk back later or the principal later. It's a promissory note that you're filling out. So with that being said, understanding that there is no actual money in our society, we are using currency, which is a medium of exchange. And all we're doing is exchanging debt for debt. So you actually don't owe anything that you're thinking you pay for unless you're actually using money. So with that being said, House Joint Resolution 192 and Executive Order 6102 were the specific pieces of legislature that forced everybody to give up their true money. And when it was passed by Congress in June 5th, 1933, that did away with the gold clause, which is what our money was backed by. Because essentially, your dollar bills were considered a receipt. And if any of you remember the old dollar bills, you remember that you were able to take that to an actual bank to receive silver or gold in exchange, because they were considered receipts. Now, obviously, that's not possible because our money is no longer backed by silver or gold.
Yeah, right.
Now, because they took the silver and the gold, have you guys ever heard of the phrase, he who has the gold pays the bills?
Yeah.
In order for them to prevent being accused of treason, they had to provide some sort of remedy, some sort of out for the American people. Because during the bankruptcy, what they did was make all of the American people collateral for the future debts and interests of the bankruptcy, which is why they forced the Maternity Act. And so now you have birth certificates, which is just a certificate of title for your vessel, which is your body, and for your future energy that you would use, depending on whether you were a working class citizen. Once that was established, you now are considered chattel property, surety, or i.e. collateral for the U.S. debt. And the receiver, if any of you have ever filed bankruptcy, you understand that you have to have a trustee or a receiver to manage it all and make sure all the funds are dispersed where they're supposed to go. So in the U.S. bankruptcy, the Secretary of State is the receiver, the Treasury is the bank, and the IRS is the accountant or collections agency. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Now, where the Cestui Que Vie Act comes in, originally, of course, this was an act created back in London. And if we understand law, we understand that the United States is still under the rulership of England. And they're under the rulership of the Vatican. So technically, the Pope is the king of the world. But the Cestui Que Vie Act was created because during the Black Plague, a lot of people were fleeing the country, and then they had landlords that was taking care of their estate. Obviously, they didn't have Wi-Fi, cell phones, and all this whatnot back in the day. So it was very difficult for them to determine whether someone was dead or alive because they hadn't came back to reclaim their estate. So under the Cestui Que Vie Act of 1666, if you did not return by 7 years to reclaim your estate, then those landlords could easily go to the courts and claim the estate for themselves. However, if you did come back within those 7 years, then the rightful owner could reclaim their estate and land with no issues. Fast forward to today, it is believed that that same act, which was extended under the Admiralty Maritime Law, states that if we do not reclaim, if our parents don't reclaim our estate by the age of 7, and we don't claim it by the age of 18, then our estate is sheets to the government, meaning all of the interest that was accrued and accumulated from that birth certificate bond, it goes to the federal government or the state until we make our rightful claim in our status, or unless our parents claim that we are technically alive by age 7. And that's a whole nother process. So this is why we, even though we're grown and have children of our own, if we have never stated that we are living and alive, we are still considered wards of the state. Our children are considered wards of the state when we as mothers get birth certificates for them. And essentially, when we apply for birth certificates, what we are doing is we are establishing a trust. And we're giving our child over to the state for them to handle the estate of our offspring. And so when we do that, we also give them authority to handle the affairs of our children. So if the state doesn't feel like we're doing a good job as parents, then they can come and remove our offspring, which they call our children or a child or kids, which is a baby goat, but they can come and take their property from us and put them into the system, and we have really no rights or say so. And because they're still considered wards of the state, we are considered chattel property because of that birth certificate and that social security, and us not claiming our estates.
We want to pause you right there. We would just think what you just said resonated with us because we think about the foster care system that has so many children in the foster care system and wonder how they were able to come up with money to pay people the way they do. It's because they're coming off the. Can you imagine?
Yeah,
Ain't that a hot
Yes.
mess?
I'm wondering if people actually use that.
So-
If you
Yeah,
notice,
that's what I'm
it's
saying.
mostly
Yeah.
white people that have their kids and give them
Yes.
to the state.
State.
If you think about it,
Yes.
it's mostly white people. that
Because
do it.
black folks
Black
don't, we
people
don't,
do
we
that.
don't,
We
we
take
don't
care of
adopt
our
our
kids.
own.
Definitely.
We don't
even adopt,
Yeah,
period.
we'll take care of our
Yeah.
own. Handicap or
Yeah.
not, white people are
That's awesome.
ashamed. They are ashamed. So they will
Yeah.
give theirs to the state. But go
But
ahead, I'm
black folks
sorry.
do it too. We got more
Yeah, we
black
do.
folks. We got more blacks in the foster care system though.
Especially
For the ones that are in
drugs.
prison or drugs
Right.
primarily.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
I just had to point that out. I thought that was so
That's
profound.
deep.
That's deep.
No, but here's the very interesting thing, right? Which is very important. So when we also create that trust with that birth certificate, for us as women, if we do not put the father's name on the birth certificate, that makes our child a bastard. Why that's important? Because when you create that initial trust, what the government does, it takes 1.5 million from the mother's estate and 1.5 million from the father's estate. And then for the next 2 years,
Oh, man.
they continue to dump money into that bond. So that's why your birth certificate is on bond paper.
Okay.
If you look at your birth certificate, there are two
I just saw
dates
that.
on there.
I'm calling a
I
Negro
didn't
on
even think
mine.
of that.
I'm a Negro. I'm a Negro parent.
You're a Negro.
Yeah, Negro on mine. I was in Birmingham, Alabama born, so I don't know if that had something to do with it or
I
not.
definitely has something to do with it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we're
definitely.
not, we're not
Y'all
that
not
far
Negro-
apart. And I'm
yeah.
like, yeah, like. what
You
the
not
hell?
Negro on yours? On your
What?
birth certificate?
I don't think so.
I'm
You don't
not.
say
Pick
Negro.
up
I don't
man.
know.
I've never paid attention.
Man's
I
gonna say
never
nothing
paid
about no
attention to
Negro.
that.
Definitely.
Well, I think it has something to do with it.
I've seen
It's gotta be an Alabama thing. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Deep
South,
South.
deep
Yeah.
South.
Oh, you
yeah.
got yours?
I'm looking at man's gonna say Negro.
Yeah,
What does it
I
say?
believe that's Alabama.
Color or anything?
Oh, y'all might want
That's a copy of it.
Sorry, yeah, we got shut.
I'm sorry, go ahead, huh?
Oh, no, take your time because the light bulbs are coming on.
Yeah, they popping all over the place. They look like
Yeah,
this.
one went out, and now the rest of them coming up.
to.
Yeah.
Totally.
So now you understand if you look at the birth certificate where the mother should be, you'll have sometimes the word informant.
Can I
The
ask
mother-
you a question? Is that
Yes,
why the
it
white
says,
man,
it does say informant. Wow.
would that explain
Informant.
why the white man went
Let me
over
see
to
something.
Africa? Well, and I might be getting a little bit too deep.
It does. say
Uh-huh,
that.
go ahead.
Us all over here on the
I'm
mothership
looking-
coming
I'm
here.
looking at
I don't know.
mine,
I didn't
and
know
it
if they were
does
planning on
says-
counting us like that.
It
and
does
maybe
says
that's far
informant.
behind.
Mhm.
So
Wow.
there's like that goes multiple ways and multiple
That's so
depths.
Sorry.
Yeah, that really goes deep. So some of this, well, let's go even further back and let's just be plain and honest. When
Yeah.
we as a people of color were in rulership of this world, we also had Caucasians as slaves.
Okay.
Also in Africa, there were African tribes that were capturing other African tribes and submitting them over as slaves.
Yes, and I
And
heard
then you also
that.
have
Remember that.
the ones that were considered indentured servants, meaning they had a debt to pay and they had an agreement to say, I'll work for you for X amount of years to pay off my debt. But then that turned into cruel slavery. So there's multiple levels of that they don't share. They just keep perpetuating the one single thing that the white people brought us over here and enslaved us. And my lineage and my history are right from this country.
Yep.
I do have lineage that goes back to Igbo Nigerians, but most of my lineage is right here in this country. So they've been lying to us this entire time. We are native to this land. This is our land, which they have taken over under trust law.
Let's have 40 acres and a mule is what we fixing to do and more.
So that ain't enough.
Pretty much.
Reparations.
Yeah, if they ain't giving us gold and silver and a damn horse, what is a mule going to do? A mule cannot reproduce.
Can't do anything.
Supposed to
Can't
work
do
the
anything.
land. That's all he was for.
Yeah,
Work the land,
That's all he
yeah.
was
pull
for.
the plow. Yeah.
Did you hear what they said?
I want a horse. I know the mule was to work the land, but I want give me a horse. I want something that's God made, not manipulated by,
Yes,
whatever
yeah.
they did in their science factory. But yeah, so on that, so that birth certificate, that bond is created, and that's also sold on the stock exchange. The New York Stock Exchange, to be exact. They bundle them up and then they sell them, and that's how they're able to get additional loans from the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, which is the ones that we're calling the Federal Reserve.
Should we turn our
Is
phone
that
off?
ETF?
Should we turn our phone off?
Probably.
Huh?
I don't want no IA,
Big
artificial
brother.
intelligence.
She
I'm
was saying,
serious.
should we turn our phones off and,
So they don't come looking for us.
Hmm.
Well, they don't come anyway, but this is a private meeting, so they can
Yeah.
kick rock.
Right.
I like you.
I love
Put it on
her.
airplane mode. Put it on airplane mode. They can't-
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't
You
know.
put it on
that.
airplane mode. They
Okay.
really?
All right.
can
All right, we're gonna all be on airplane.
turn.
Mhm.
All right. So going back to that birth certificate, what we did when we filled out or re-registered. So the term register means to give over title and ownership.
Is that on the birth
So when we register for the birth certificate, we as parents, or mothers and fathers, we give our children over to the state. When we register our cars with the state, we give them property and ownership of our car, which is why they can force us to get tags and to pay taxes and to get emissions tests and so on and so forth, because it's now their property. You just have a certificate of title. You don't have the actual title. When you purchase a vehicle, the actual title or proof of ownership is the MCO, the manufacturer's certificate of origin, and the original bill of sale. That is the original title.
They got the original title. We just got a copy. Is that what you're saying?
You get a certificate that says you got permission to operate it on the roads.
Yeah.
So again, anytime you register,
Can I ask you a question?
Be a bad traffic.
yeah, go ahead.
I don't,
I didn't hear it.
sidebars. I don't know if I missed it, but where, okay, I was looking for the father. So the mother is an informant
Uh-huh.
and the father,
That's the bloodline. He's just that father.
okay. Okay.
Well, historically, the bloodline was traced from the mother because the mother is the portal by which one came through. And so that's why, if for my gentlemen in the room, that's why it seemingly seems that the mother has more rights when it comes to legal matters, because we are the one that birthed the child through. And your mitochondrial DNA is actually traced on the maternal side, not on the paternal side.
But they switched it and gave it to the male. Basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
When was that?
Title.
years ago.
Oh.
Because whatever the mother, as far as race is what the child is considered back in the day. But you said
Yeah.
they switched it?
Yeah, they switched it.
So now that's what.
And also traditionally, we carried both our mother and our father's family name because that also helped us to trace our lineage back. But now we no longer do that. The Spanish still do it. And there's some other cultures around the world that still do it. But originally, we as a people, we held both. We never really had what's called a middle name. We had the family name, which is the father's and mother's side. And then we have a given name, which is they're calling our first name. Okay. So back to that whole birth certificate. When we registered for the birth certificate, we thus created a trust with the federal government. And under basic trust law, you have the grantor or the donor, which is your mama or your daddy. And then you have the beneficiary, which is you, the living, breathing man and woman. And then you have a trustee, the person that's receiving and holding the property for the benefit of the beneficiary. However, because we have not known that we were beneficiaries of a trust, and we presume that we are debtors, we have allowed them to do whatever they want with the interest of that estate. Also, when our parents applied for the Social Security number, which is a voluntary system, by the way, that's also another trust. And when you become of age, when you reach the retirement age, what you're supposed to do is request a full accounting of that Social Security trust, not apply for retirement. Because what they're doing when you
too close to retire, request a
you're
full
doing
audit.
it, you're doing it as a debtor, and so they're just going to pay you a few pennies here and there.
Okay, you said request a full audit of the trust.
Yep.
Not apply for Social Security.
Exactly. Because remember, it's public and private, and remember, you hold two positions. You hold the position as the creator, the sovereign man or woman created by the creator, and then as the beneficiary of the public trust, which is your names and all, or some people call it the straw man or the person in public. So you have a private side and you have a public side. So when we go to make applications for these benefits, we're under the presumption that we're 14th Amendment U.S. citizen slaves. And so they're only going to give us what they want to give us, not what's due us.
Yes. But the white people know, don't they? They know.
Most of them do.
She said most of them
Most
do.
of, yeah. Most of them. But not all of them, and especially the poor white trash.
Oh, well, yeah, the poor ones though, but
Yeah.
the rich ones, they know.
Yeah.
Can I get some clarification?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, and then I'll go back over my notes. I got some more at home, but when you said we have a private side and we have the private
Public.
side is who we are.
Yes, your private side, your living blood, flesh. And so under the private side, a public corporation, which is just a dead entity, cannot deal with the living flesh and blood man, which is also why they established that Maternity Act, because they had to create a puppet version of you in order to deal with you.
Okay, hold that thought.
So any correspondence in public is going to have your name in, let me see if you can see here. Hold on. Get this out the way. All capital letters. That's not what we were taught in school. We were taught proper case. Proper case deals with the live man and woman. But when you're dealing in the public, everything is going to be in capital letters because they're not dealing with you. They're dealing with your public face or your public puppet, which is your straw man, which is the trust that was established via your birth certificate. And so that's why understanding trust law is very important, because as beneficiaries of this estate, we can request a full accounting of what the trustees are doing, which is what the W-4 does.
Okay.
Yes, I can send this to you guys.
My birth certificate.
Are you gonna send the PowerPoint?
Yeah, I can send the PowerPoint.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Because I was getting writer's cramp.
All right, so the other thing to know, so understanding trust law is very important, but also understanding contract law is also as equally important. And you have basic types of contracts. You have a unilateral contract, which just means that only one person or one party of that contract is the one that's going to promise to provide some type of service or take action that's of value to the other party. Then you have bilateral contracts, which of course, typically those fall under common law or equity law, because both parties agree. And of course, you have your certain statutes. You have to be of legal age. You have to be in your right mind and competent. And there has to be a full disclosure of the terms and conditions. So bilateral contracts are traditionally between two private individuals. or your public face entity and a business or corporation or partner, i.e. so on and so forth. And then you have implied contracts, which are contracts based off of your actions. So a good example of that is, let's say you take public transportation. By you paying the fare to get on the city bus to go XYZ, you are under the assumption that you have contracted and agreed that that person has your best interest at heart, that your safety is under their best interest, and that they're going to get you where you're going, and whatever happens, it just happens. That's an implied contract. Or let's bring it home to personal. Let's say you and your lover get together and someone starts staying over the other person's house, then the implications there are that we're in a relationship. That's an implied contract.
About you a drink, you my girl.
Now.
It's an implied contract, and contracts can be verbal or written, but it's implied that we're in a relationship because you staying over my house, I'm paying your bills, we, doing our grown-up thing. So that's kind of like a simplified version of an implied contract. But again, it's based off of actions. It may not necessarily be written in stone or talked about, but it's implied by your actions. So every day we enter into implied contracts when we're dealing with the public. And then you have your express contracts. Again, those can be written or oral, but those have the terms and conditions plainly written out so that each person can understand, or each party to the contract can determine whether they want to enter into it or not. Then you also have what's called adhesion contracts. Those are typically drafted by parties where one side has the most bargaining power and the weaker party is only able to accept it or not. So an example of an implied adhesion contract would be like your utility company. You really don't sign anything when you go to register for utilities. You give them their social or your social, they tap into your trust account, and they send you a bill, which that bill is actually a receipt of how much they have gotten from your trust account. At least so it is believed.
So they double dipping.
However, if you don't give them that social or don't enter into that contract, then you can't get power unless you go off grid and do solar.
Oh.
And that's an adhesion contract.
That's what's popular now.
It's an adhesion contract. It's also a unilateral contract because it's only one-sided. You're the only person that's actually signing. Now, some aspects of that can be considered a bilateral contract as well, because you are promising to pay debt notes or IOUs for them providing you a service. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Now, how does that work with where the government is offering the solar panels and some type of a write-off on your taxes if you accept it and do? If you're saying that that's going, it's still a contract.
It's a lobby.
It's just a lobby
It's
type
because of
situation.
like
It's
energy
still a
lobby.
contract. So
They have powerful
when
lobbyists,
you,
very well paid, that keep that from happening.
Mhm.
That's exactly the reason.
It's
why.
like you can have more than.
That's why you don't see, the government pushing solar power, even though like that's like unlimited power that all of us have access to. So,
Free.
well, it's not free, but I mean the way you have to
sun.
channel it. The sun is free, but they don't want that.
Yeah.
So there are
They would
lobbyists
rather-
that fight to keep
The
that
white
from happening.
man would rather have you
Yeah.
pay for it.
That's why our family has land, and I found out that they were paying my family not to farm the land. The government is paying my family not to farm our land.
and why? Because they want control over everything. So if they can
Right.
control you here, they can control the rest of you. If they can keep you enslaved here, they enslave the rest of you. So as the gentleman was saying, yeah, we have free resources that we can tap into without stress.
Yeah.
and without polluting the earth and raping and pillaging her. However, because they want to keep us in bondage and they want to keep us paying their interest for the debts that they owe for the bankruptcy, that's why it's regulated in the manner in which it's regulated. They are paying a lot. If you go and talk to any traditional farmer or somebody that used to have farms and produce crops, they'll tell you they pay me to dump the milk, they pay me to burn the crops, they pay me more money than I can make with selling it. And they're also forcing them to use patented seeds. How do you patent God's work? I don't know if you guys remember the situation that happened down in Haiti when Monsanto, which is the company that we're talking, we're just going to call them M for now, but they went through, I think they went through a major hurricane or disaster that kind of destroyed it. And the government came in and said, oh, we'll help you, but we're going to force you to get a vaccination if you want our help. And we're going to force you to take our seeds if you want our help. And Haiti said no, because seeds from the creator, they're supposed to reproduce. However, if you get a patented seed from the corporation known as M, they do not reproduce. So that forces the farmers to constantly have to keep buying seeds every season. And they put it under the guise of, oh, we want to create stuff that's going to help society and something that's more durable and sustainable and, you know, not subject to drought and pollution, blah, 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 blah. But they're killing us in the long run.
Yeah, they are.
Look at the health, especially of America. Look at our health. Look at the history of illnesses that have come about with all these changes in agriculture, these changes in culture, these changes even in the clothing that we wear, the air that we breathe, the water that we consume, bathe, and cook with.
So do you believe in the organic? When they
Yes.
say food is really organic, do you really believe that they really
I
provide
really
organic?
believe that I will tell you this, based on my experiences, when I was down, because I lived in Mexico and I've also lived overseas in Europe and Italy, military. Mexico wasn't military, but everywhere else was. You can taste the difference in the fruits, in the vegetables, in the grains when you consume them. Your body reacts differently to the fruits, vegetables, and grains, even the meats too, for those that do eat meat. You can tell the difference in how your body reacts to it. Your body is the biggest indicator of what's good for you and what's not. And I know you got all these special people that say, oh, well, this is good for you and this is not, or this is good for you and this is not. No, you listen to your own body, because your body's going to tell you what's good for it and what's not. And if you ever get a chance to spend time in a foreign country and are able to eat their fruits and vegetables, then you'll understand or have a better understanding of what I'm saying in regards to what's truly organic and what's not. Now, I know that's the big ruse for some people to label stuff, oh, this is organic or not used with GMO or grass raised and fed and blah, 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 blah. We just have to do our own due diligence to pay attention to our vessel to really know what's good for us and what's not. Because as I found out, you can't trust what nobody in the public says. They may say, oh, this is organic and raised properly and has the right, you know, codes on it and everything. And I'm looking at you with a side eye because
Your
it
body.
may not.
Like the
My body said otherwise.
Yeah.
They know something a long time ago.
Them Amishes.
Oh yeah, they knew.
Yeah.
And also what I discovered having lived overseas is, for instance, Dove soap. So Dove soap is supposed to be really gentle, right?
That's right.
And it's supposed to have less chemicals, so on and so forth.
Are you getting ready to make me throw out all the shower gel I just bought?
Look at her. She done turned to what? Don't do it.
Well, okay. So the rules when it comes to personal hygiene and personal products that are consumed or placed on your skin, the rules are much more strict in Europe and other countries than it is here in the States. So if you get somebody to get you a bar of Dove soap from somewhere else versus here, you're going to see the ingredients are different because they don't allow a lot of chemicals into their products because they understand the effects of such chemicals. So when I used Dove shampoo and conditioner when I was in Italy, it worked wonders for my body and for my skin. And I come back to the States and it is not the same at all because the FDA and all those other alphabet groups, they are not really here for our highest good and for our health. They're here for money. Okay. So unfortunately, now I only use black soap. I'm sorry.
You use black soap?
Yep, I use black soap and I make my own lotion with shea butter and oil because I can't trust all these other companies. If I can't pronounce what you're putting inside this stuff, then I don't need to deal with it.
Yeah.
Well, you say you make your own lotion out of shea butter and I got the black soap. Are you ordering it offline or?
With my shea butter?
But how do you know?
Your black soap.
No, I have to go in the store and look at it. You can order from offline. One of the manufacturers that I've come to appreciate is Dudu Osun, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. That comes in a green box, but you can use the raw shea butter soap. And I know we're kind of getting off topic, but it's important because we got to take care of ourselves, mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah. That's true.
But yeah. So taking it back to focusing back to contract law. So understand contract law, understand that when we're dealing in the public, we are doing contract law every day, all day, nonstop. And it's very important for us to take the time out to actually read the contracts that we're getting into, because when we don't, that's when we get hemmed up. That's when we place ourselves in predicaments that we really don't want to be in. Now, in understanding how we got from being considered the sovereign man or woman or creditor down to the debtor, we got to follow the yellow brick road. So we got the birth certificate that first established a trust, which demoted us from a state national to a U.S. citizen. So if you look at your birth certificate, you got the actual date that you were born, and then you have another date down there where the register registered you, and that was the birth of your trust. But when that happened, that demoted you from a state national or an American down to a U.S. citizen as U.S. property. Then to go further down the rabbit hole, our parents or us apply for a social security number. Again, with a voluntary system, it is a voluntary system. And you can go to the Social Security Administration and read it. It'll clearly state that it's a voluntary system. You do not have to have a social security number. However, because society has forced us to get a social security number and has forced us to believe the lie that we need one in order to be able to work, to earn wages, and to get income to open a bank account, most people believe that you have to have that number. When in actuality, if you look at the laws and the rules in the federal code in accordance with your social security number, it states do not give that number out to anybody that asks for it.
It sure does.
But you have to.
Yeah, it's like.
No, you don't. That's
in the hospital.
the thing. You don't have to, because it's stated in the law. And because we don't know the law, or we know the law and don't know how to enforce it,
There you go.
they get away with it. So that's
When I was working at the urgent care, we were asking, patients at first for their socials, but then we were told that they do not have to give it to us, and we don't have to. We ask, but we don't have. If we don't get it, we just don't get it.
Exactly, and you're not at fault for that. So let's think about a bank account. You can open a bank account with just your passport without using a social security number. However, because they don't completely understand the laws and how they apply, they think, oh, the Patriot Act allows us to excuse what the laws are. No. They have to ask for your social security number. However, you do not have to give it. And in that instance, they would just let the IRS know, I did request, in accordance with the rules and federal regulations that we're under, I did request the social, but my customer refused. Now, when you do that, and when you open an account that is not based on the social security number, it's considered a private account on the private side. And because it's on the private side, nobody can go into your account to see how much money you're making. They can't put a lien on your account because, again, it's not tied to the public system. It's private. That makes sense.
Yeah, because when you run a credit report, it shows every one of those, and it's based on your social security number, everybody that you contracted with.
Yep.
That's another.
And there is way more than 4 credit reporting agencies.
Exactly.
Way more than 4.
Are you serious?
Yes. Of course, we know the popular ones, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, and LexisNexis.
Yeah,
But there are hundreds more that report on public information. And we wonder why so many people are plagued with identity theft, because they got our information out there in the public.
When you register your business, you get the
number, but it's still tied to your social.
It's still tied to your social.
Don and Bryce.
And the other thing that people don't understand when it comes to business, now, businesses are generally considered dead entities and they are naturally bankrupt. Okay? When you apply for an EIN number to establish a business, whether it be an LLC, sole proprietorship, corporation, it is considered a dead entity and is considered bankrupt. And they force you to do that. Why? Because you're operating in the US using US reserve notes, so they can take taxes from you, being that you have status of public business. However, what they also don't tell you is that you don't have to do that, but at the same token, there is the risk in operating a private corporation. You can operate a private corporation, however, you do have to deal with liability and think about that, whether you're doing products or services. And you have to be financially sound just in case someone would like to take you to court, but they would have to do so in a court of equity, not in a traditional civil court. That's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down, understanding public and private again, and that falls under that arena. And we're not going to go too much in depth into that. But to understand all of the additional contracts that have bound you to their jurisdiction that you voluntarily entered into, you have your 1040s, which they told us to fill out for taxes and tax reporting. And if you go and read the tax law, you'll understand that 1040s are for government employees. So with you filling out a W-4, what you're stating is that you are a government employee, thus a pseudo trustee of your account, and you're responsible for reporting where all those FORNs are going, or whether they've been used, or whether they've been invested, so on and so forth. When technically, we're supposed to be filing 1041s for our estate and our trust, or 1040 NRs, which means non-resident.
1040 NR.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Other ways that we've contracted into their jurisdiction is with all the registrations. So voters registration, vehicle registration, And voting is very important, yes. However, when you register, you're asking for their permission to state who you would like to run for office for you. What you're not understanding behind the scenes is that all you're doing is giving a popularity vote, not an electoral vote. So prior to you having done a voter's registration, you are considered one of the people. And so when you go to vote, it was considered an electoral vote. But then when you register to vote, now it's considered, as I call it, you're just doing a popularity vote, kind of like voting for homecoming queen and king. And they're just seeing what the people like, but we are not the ones that are actually determining who gets in office unless we are operating from the private side and doing an electoral vote, because those are the votes that actually.
But you can't vote unless you register to vote, correct?
No, that's not true.
Really?
Yep.
Like,
Okay,
It's
tell us
right.
how.
Remember,
I do
when
need
you
to-
register, just basic, go back to the basics. When you register, you're asking for their permission to do something that is a God-given right to do. So if you have to ask for their permission, that means you are not the sovereign man or woman that knows how to handle their own affairs. You are their property.
Okay, so what's the workaround? Because I do voter registrations in my community. So what would be the go around if a person is not registered, especially someone with a felony,
if I was
Mhm.
who is not allowed to vote because of that felony? Okay,
Mhm.
so what is the go around if they don't register and then they go to the precinct to vote? They're not on that list. When you come in, you show your ID.
Yeah.
They give you your.
So those are
badge.
for the voters registrations. They have to send in, and I'll have to find the address for you for where to send in your electoral vote. But look up electoral votes and that'll guide you in the right direction.
Or at popular votes. You know how they do it on the news. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean,
I have heard.
Yeah, that's, is electoral. vote.
Mm-hmm. Cause they always say popular votes and then they say
Electoral
votes.
Each state.
I have
Each
heard
state
it.
has its own.
Yeah.
But
But it's up to them what they wanna count. They wanna count electoral votes. They don't wanna count popular votes. But if I'm a
The
felon,
popular votes are
that's,
voting.
yeah.
And you know, the popular votes, they're to incite the masses, of course. You know, they put all the drama on the news. Oh, the race is getting blah, 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 blah. While behind the scenes, they're operating in the private. So again, they have a public face, which they use to control the masses. And because a lot of people watch the news and believe that they're actually telling the truth, that incites them in some way, shape, or form. That controls their mental in some way, shape, or form.
Okay. If you can find something and share it with Tracy.
Okay.
Where someone can vote without actually registering.
And remember this, it's a deep rabbit hole to go down to go back to your national status in order to be able to have an electoral vote. Because let's say somebody's not registered, but they're still considered a U.S. citizen, meaning U.S. property. They can't do an electoral vote because they're still considered a citizen, or i.e. U.S. property, i.e. debtor.
Until they establish their.
So they establish their proper status in law.
Right.
They still have to do the voters registration. So that's why I said it's a long rabbit hole. So you have to first correct your status in their systems. That's a whole nother class by itself. But correct your status in their systems to go back to your state national status or American national status, which is the status you had maybe about a week before they created public version of you.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
So the last step, like I said, we haven't rebutted presumption. So when it comes to laws, they have what's called a rebuttable presumption. And what that means is that an idea or thought stands as truth unless it's rebutted, refuted, denied, or rejected. So for example, let's say you get arrested what they're going to presume is that you are considered a Black man or woman, right? And if you look in the Black's Law Dictionary, if you're considering yourself Black, you're considered civilis mortis, which is Latin for civilly dead. If you're considered dead and you're considered property, that means you have no rights, which is why they do whatever they want to do with you. And they put on a puppet show in the court, but it doesn't matter. Which is why a lot of our men and women end up incarcerated or end up in a negative disposition because of that presumption. So we have to rebut that presumption. And some of you thinking, well, what else am I other than Black? If you look at your SS5 as well as your SS 881, I believe, those are forms that are dealing with public statuses. In the political arena, if you are considered white, that means you are a man or a woman that can handle their own affairs, that can take care of themselves, that has rights, so on and so on and so on and so on and so forth. If you consider yourself Black, again, you're considered as somebody that cannot handle their own affairs. You're considered civilly dead and you have no rights. But they have us thinking that it's based on ethnicity and race.
And what is this under?
Look under your SS Form 881, Social Security form, or your Ombudsman form, OMB form. You'll see OMB, I forgot what the numbers are in the upper right-hand corner. If you also look at your SS5 form, the form that you use to apply for your Social Security number, they ask you what your race is. They ask you what your classification is, because they're going to classify you as that in a system to know where you stand politically. So do you have rights as a man or woman? Do you know how to handle your own affairs? Or are you property and dead and don't have any rights?
So if you Black, you automatically don't have no rights.
If you're calling yourself Black, not if you're Black, because remember, we've accepted and have adopted that as an identity as a people.
Boxing yourself.
Our parents done already boxed us
Box us
in.
in, yeah.
Our parents done already boxed us in, and we done boxed like
Just like when they ask for surveys on,
Change it.
how we change it.
Other, we're gonna be
How
other,
do you change it? You change it by refiling your SS5.
refile it.
That's your Social Security code, right?
Yep.
And I refiled it and I checked other.
White.
You pick white. And then, of course, if you are,
I thought I just did it at the doctor.
You
How you
said,
serious?
When I went to the doctor.
You said
like,
check white.
what's your
You said check white.
you check either white or American Indian if you are Native player.
Both.
I got Indian in my.
You can do both, right? Both. Yeah, both, right?
Some people do both if they are indigenous to this land. Of course, you have to know your family history. But yeah, some people do both, white and American Indian.
I'm gonna start doing that when I apply for jobs. When you apply for jobs, it's best to do it too,
That's
then.
five.
Yep. And remember, that's voluntary. You're voluntarily putting yourself into
Yeah,
one of
you
those.
don't have to provide that.
You
Yes.
don't have to provide that.
You don't have to provide that. Mm-mm. Girl, preach. Yeah.
Snap, snap.
So,
Uh,
so here's the other thing that we also have to think about that fits into this whole web. When we apply for licenses, when you get a license, you're asking their permission to do something. The Supreme Court in several cases have already stated that you do not need a license to travel on public roads unless you are operating in commerce, meaning you are driving for money, you're doing delivery service, public transportation system, tractor trailers. If you are transporting or conducting business, that's what you need a license for. But if you're just traveling to take care of you and your family, you do not need their permission to travel on public roads, which is a license. As a state national, you don't need a license to carry. That's a God-given law or right protected by the Constitution.
look,
You don't need their permission to hunt for food. That's a God-given law established by the scriptures that animals and plants are meat for us. We don't need their permission to go hunting, for those of you that go hunting. However, because we have established under their jurisdiction that we are U.S. citizens, 14th Amendment citizens, property, Black debtors, we need their permission in order to do what God has already given us the authority to do. Which is why correcting your status or rebutting these presumptions is very, very important.
But that's
Correct. Status. You have political status. Go ahead.
I said that was going to be my my next question, because you keep saying until you establish your status, then you can go up against these laws. And I do remember on one of those videos, the guy said, you told me about it, he kept the paperwork in his glove compartment so that if he got pulled over and didn't have license, but the odds are you're still going to get arrested.
Not license, car insurance.
Car insurance.
Car insurance.
1099 insured.
1099.
Right. Now, that was a money
Because he
thing.
said the judge can't say I don't
1099
have
insured
one,
him.
but he got it.
But if the state wants you to have a license, that 1099 is not about money.
It's about paying for the other person's property.
Exactly. Or any damage.
1099 to pay for that property.
You can.
You can.
Yeah.
It's a check.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, it says a
Yeah,
check.
you're true.
Well, you can go to the bank and cash the money to pay for the.
I will tell you what I have done. I do not have a driver's license. I surrendered that years ago when I started going down this rabbit hole. I have an affidavit that states that I am a living blood, flesh woman given the sovereign right to travel. I am not conducting commerce. I am living peaceably upon this land. It's a long 4-page thing that I do carry with me. And I remember when I was working for Lazy Boy, I was going to a person's house and I got pulled over because I was going too fast. Apparently, I didn't know what the speed was. And what I did was handed the gentleman that affidavit. He went, sat in his car and read it and gave it back to me and told me to be careful and go along my way.
So that's
You know what that reminds me of?
If you know who you are and you're standing, then you can rebut it.
Travel.
Unfortunately, mind you, I do have a background as a law enforcement officer. Even though the policy enforcers are supposed to be enforcing the law, they do not know the law. They know codes and statutes which apply to employees, but they don't know the law. And so, unfortunately, you do have some that completely disregard your affidavits, which you have seen, if you probably watched on YouTube or whatever have you have seen people that have gone through that. And unfortunately, when you're trying to differentiate between the public and the private, you do have to educate the public because they don't know. None of us were taught this. None of us were taught this. None of us knew the laws or know the laws because we don't read. And so we don't know this. And we're supposed to be the ones that are maintaining the law of the land. We are the El or Elohim. And if we don't enforce the law and put them in their proper place, then we're going to constantly have our rights taken away from us.
So question, when you go back and refile, just fictitiously speaking, and you go back and you refile this SS5 and you establish yourself as white or American Indian, I don't even know if it has or other. One, you're going to get questioned when you go in somewhere, and but you are still.
It's a street ain't gonna show. So street court ain't gonna show that you white or black or nothing like that.
No, I mean,
yeah, it's not going to show, but they correct it in the records behind the scenes. And it normally takes about 30 to 45 days for them to correct their records, but it's corrected behind the scenes. So no, it's not going to show on the public face. But if the cops go and pull up like your information, it's going to show white. Like if you guys have any law enforcement officer friends, that's okay with doing this on the private side. you can ask them to look up your information once you correct your status so that they can see what they pull up in their systems because it's all connected.
But I'm still entering into another contract, even though I'm changing the status to white.
You're correcting the status and
I'm
changing
correcting the status.
You're
but
still in that
I'm still-
contract. And the frustrating thing is that we cannot cancel this voluntary contract that we entered into with the
Okay.
Social Security Administration.
We're just correcting.
Yeah,
Okay.
You're doing an amendment, I guess.
Yeah.
exactly.
So I still have the social security number.
Yeah, she just doing an amendment, correct?
And what I'll do too, I have a document that goes over the different jurisdictions. It also gives you all of the United States Code and the Internal Revenue codes so that you guys can go down a rabbit hole with that when it comes to correcting your status. And at the end, it tells you how to go about doing that, okay?
Interesting.
So what I'll do, I'll email that to Tracy. Let me make a note.
I wonder if they do audits on that, SS5s to where if you said.
Say that again.
I wonder if they do audits. So if she go back and make a credit, she go back and do amendment, saying she's Indian or other or white. If they look on the Social Security connect, when they look to see that the mother's black and the father's black, then how you others?
That's what I was gonna say. Because it says, what is a Negro?
Remember, it's a political status. It has nothing to do with your ethnicity or race. It's a political status.
Okay.
So understand, and like I said, we've been trained to think that saying black is our actual ethnicity and race, and it's not. It's a political status. So we have to retrain our minds to comprehend their systems.
And when we put it in, it ain't gonna show up. They not gonna see a black person before we get there. They gonna see a white person.
Because it's an
Right. Yeah. Like when you apply for a job,
I'm liking
you
that.
go in for the.
So let me tell you how this applies, right? So let's say you and Joe Smo were speeding down the road and you both go to court, for your traffic ticket or whatnot. Joe Smo, he's had several DUIs, several speeding tickets, blah, 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 but he is listed as a white person. He might get a slap on the wrist and a small fine and get knocked out the door. But you, being labeled as a black person, this is your first offense, but you got speeding. You got to pay $300 for a ticket and be on probation and go to class. Why is that?
Black.
Or fly a plane and do
Because you're considered black in their systems.
Different rules for different shades.
Exactly. And that's why it is.
They never stabbed me. You're right.
All right. So give me 1 second. I'm gonna email Tracy this diagram really quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Tracy, can you give me your email again?
Beautiful women of quality.
Thank you. I got it. Okay.
She was in there, she just went in her room.
No, I mean,
Oh,
yeah, listen, you might have to do it for us. Get that money. You know what I'm saying? I'm not for my kids. That almost makes me feel like, because honestly, we do what we're taught. Our parents were taught this. We were taught that.
And they don't see this good. Is that everything she's doing? All this should be taught in history, but it's not,
No way.
We just got a good history lesson.
Yeah, or even in college, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
They're not gonna drag them down there. That's why they only hit a little bit on Black history in
That's
school.
why we're down here.
Yep.
No matter.
I remember one
Wow.
time Noah was doing a history and he was saying Columbus was the one who discovered America. How do you discover something where somebody's already at? I said,
And hold on, they didn't tell you that this Negro got lost because he was looking for India and he went to the islands. He didn't land in Virginia. He landed in the islands looking for India. Study astrology, dude. You got lost.
What about the Jews and all that? How do they select? What do they check? The Jews, what do they check? Others?
Yeah.
I'm just curious. Just say if I was a
Other-
Jew. Okay.
I never.
Yeah,
thought
they check.
about
They
that.
either check white. They either check white or they check other.
Just don't be.
What's she
black.
say?
Other.
And
White or-
if you really want to understand law, get a Jewish lawyer. If you really want to win in court, get a Jewish
Jewish
lawyer.
law. I believe that.
Y'all trying to.
They got money.
And
And they
it
got money.
just so happens that my teacher, who was also a naval JAG officer when I was in school for law, he was Jewish as well.
Mhm.
And he taught me a lot. And I'm
Wow.
like, oh, wow. Like, why don't they need to teach us, like you guys said, they need to teach us this in school, not all this.
They don't.
And they're not going to. That's
I'll say
empowering. They'll never do
they
that.
will-
They'll never do it.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So as you were mentioning how we get out of it, what our redress and remedy is, understanding that we're under trust, so we're beneficiaries of our trust estate. As the beneficiary, which is why I said if you guys can study trust law, that's very important because you know what your rights are as a beneficiary, but you also know what the trustees' rights are and what their responsibilities are, because they're in a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that the beneficiary is taken care of. So anytime a trust is established, as a beneficiary, we have the right to request a full accounting of the estate or of the trust. We have the right to request what is needed for our livelihood from the trust and for our benefit from the trust. However, we cannot go into the trust ourselves and do whatever we want to do. We do have to make a public contract for it. And anybody that's given your social security number, they are now placed in a fiduciary responsibility of that trust. So when you go to court, that's a trust going on there. The judge is a trustee,
Mhm.
the attorney is a trustee, the prosecutor, court clerk is a trustee. And if any of you guys are in construction, I think you're kind of familiar with bonds, bid bonds, performance bonds, and I forgot the name of the other type of bonds. But that's exactly the same forms that the court of clerk files to get access to your trust for the cases. So the cases really could care less about whether you're guilty or not. They want the money.
They don't get it.
And we take it personally because we understand basic law, right and wrong, and equity, which is under common law. But when we go into their jurisdiction, which is a foreign jurisdiction, mind you, the Constitution does not apply because they're under admiralty law. And the way that you know is by looking at their flag when you go into the court. The reason why judges wear black robes is because they're under the sect of Saturnalia. And if they're dealing with you as a public representative, they have all rights over you. So if you watch any videos on how to conduct yourself in a court, you're always supposed to say that I'm here by special appearance and I am the beneficiary or executor of the trust in all capital names, blah, 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 blah.
So this may be off the subject. So just think of all the people that's in the prisons. They over all their trust, right?
Yep. And the reason why they're in prison is because they said that they understood and they signed the papers, meaning they're going to be surety for the trust. That's why their vessel is held as surety until the debts are paid for whatever the charges were.
And them prisons make money.
It's a lot of money.
They are. So prisons are private corporations, and for each body that they have inside of the prison, they get $4,000.
They get what? $4,000?
$4,000 per person that's in jail or in prison, which is why they're so quick to throw people in there for stupid stuff.
And all them black dead people.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the new form of slavery. If you read, hold on, which amendment is it? Let me find it. I'm going to go over the 13th Amendment and read it. Give me a second.
I put you on Facebook.
Excuse me?
I said, he told Wendy to drop me off.
He just moved the car.
I just moved.
I was just asking.
I'm like, what?
Why
You
would
gonna read it
you go
yourself?
up?
I was wondering, like, where he go? But where is he?
Damn, I went back there.
He
So
went
bad.
Probably
with
found that sack in my glove box.
What'd you
He
say?
probably found that sack in my glove box.
You said
I'm
what?
playing.
Don't play.
All right, so guys, going over I'm going to read the 13th Amendment,
Okay.
which of course we were told it was the abolition of slavery, right?
Yes.
So the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution provides that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime.
Wait a minute. The dogs are going crazy. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. I will read it again. It says the
Thank you.
13th Amendment provides that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction.
It's a form of slavery.
And I'm gonna read it again, except as punishment for crime.
Except punishment for crime. So if you accept,
Exactly. So if you got punished, if you're being punished for a crime, then slavery and involuntary servitude is okay.
it's okay. Because you would sound guilty.
Exactly.
Right.
Confess it, like
Oh, you
you said,
confess,
sign
yeah.
the paper. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you always plead
So
not
it's-
guilty when you go to court, innocent to proven guilty. And then once they find you guilty, then you turn around and sign it and say you accept the
You're
crime.
gonna sign some documents regardless.
I'm sorry.
No, that's under common law. We're innocent until proven guilty. However, we haven't been under common law for many, many years. We are under military law, admiralty law. So in military law, it's you're guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah.
So you're automatically guilty until you're proven innocent. And a lot of people do not know how to state their case or perfect their case in the court of law, which is why
That's the way it works.
yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much how it works, but I always thought that they say you innocent to prove it guilty.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what they,
That's what.
that's what they say.
Under common law, yes. If we're under common law and a Title III court, which there are no Title III courts except in Pennsylvania,
Mhm.
we are under Title I courts, which is under admiralty jurisdiction under the federal government, under the corporation known as the United States. So because we are no longer under common law, we're operating under the Uniform Commercial Code, you're now guilty until proven innocent. And one way that you can know that we're still under military law is if you look at any address from the president, he always has to do an emergency address. And emergency addresses are only done when we're in martial law. Again, they don't even teach government in school anymore.
Nope. No.
I told Tracy and Kim the other day when they were talking to me about this, there's
Uh-huh.
something tying into the fact that I don't know about where you are, where they stopped teaching the children handwriting. Now
in
everything is
person,
in
yeah.
print.
Everything's in
Yeah.
print.
Everything is in print. Do
Well,
you
think of the
see
word
anything else?
cursive.
Mhm.
Well, one, the English language is a bastard language, and I'm speaking from a spiritual level.
Come on.
It's a
Okay.
bastard language anyway. So when we use the words that we use, not understanding etymology, we are in fact cursing each other. When you write in cursive, you are writing curses.
Wow.
And you're writing with the number 2 pencil, which is a specific tree, which is used for curses.
OMG.
Oh my.
Oh, you just made my stomach hurt.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, but it gotta
That's
hurt.
mandatory in school system.
Yeah,
It's
it is
mandatory in school
yeah.
system.
So why did they stop teaching? But that ain't why they stopped teaching the kids writing in cursive in school. Why is that no longer exist? The kids, like I have a 9-year-old.
Well,
He's never gonna learn
One,
how to write.
because the kids no longer are writing, everything is on the computer now. That's one main reason why.
Makes sense.
But it's the signature. That's what I connected it to.
So you have your signature, but you also have your autograph. So here's the
Here you go.
difference. When you sign, you're signing as the debtor. And specifically, when it comes to contracts, we're not supposed to write in cursive and curse ourselves. We are supposed to write in print so that it's legible,
Okay.
as well as reserve our rights and state our office, which is beneficiary.
Okay.
So like
This
my
is
9-year-old son, how's he gonna sign any documents? Everything will have to be print.
He will do it in print, but the way he do it, if he's doing it in a private status, he will put his family's name first. So that's the last name. He will put colon, first given name, which they call the first name, we call a given name. And if he has a middle given name, he'll put a dash and put that given name, and then put a comma and put beneficiary.
Okay.
So that's how you differentiate between the private and the public, or the man and the straw man.
And they ain't teaching them that in school either.
Oh, no way.
Okay.
Nope.
Thank
So
you.
if we started signing that way, not writing, because I'm old school. I was taught.
Yeah, we're always scribbling, yeah.
Right.
I was-
But if we was assigned that way, even if at a job, if you're applying for a job, what would they say? What would they
Grace,
say?
Colin,
Rakeem,
Vanessa,
It-
Dot, Denise.
So
Carla.
it depends, right? I had attained for a gym membership, and I signed my name and I wrote UCC 1-308. So remember I mentioned understand the Uniform Commercial Code, because that's the code that we're under.
Mhm.
UCC
1-308.
1-308.
Mhm.
I think
Uh-huh.
UCC first.
She did.
She did.
Yeah, UCC
1-.
1-308. So UCC stands for Uniform Commercial Code. And 1-308 is the section that you're going to read. It used to be 1-207. But what that does is reserve your private rights so that you're not held liable or responsible for terms and conditions that are not expressly disclosed in any contract.
Oh.
And that's all you have to write. You don't have to write your name behind this or anything. Just the
You write your name, but you write after your name, you write either all rights reserved or UCC 1-308 when you're doing public contracts. So the documents that I just emailed to Tracy, which she can pull them up and forward them to you, you guys are gonna have fun reading that and talking about it, because it'll blow your mind.
You already
Be glad,
have.
Charlie.
You already have. But
But so going back to our redress and our remedy, understanding our role as the beneficiary, what we're supposed to do is assist the Treasury via the IRS in the administration of the U.S. bankruptcy by properly reporting where their private promissory notes are being used or issued, i.e. filing taxes. You're reporting, that's what you're doing. You're not supposed to be filing taxes because you are not a government employee, but because you have filled out a W-4 and stated that you are a government employee, that's why you pay taxes. You're not supposed to pay taxes on your wages as a private man or woman. You pay taxes on interest, but in order for you to have interest, you would have had to invest money into something. And with you working, that's not income. You're giving a service for wages. That's not income, that's wages. And those are two different definitions.
It is
But-
wages, but then they say it's income when it's tax
Yeah,
time. When it's
yeah,
tax
it's not-
time, it's income.
How they do, yeah. They tax as income. But if you look at the and again, use the code to define the words in the code. So if you look at any of the Internal Revenue Code, the Uniform Commercial Code, the United States Code, they give you the definitions of the words and what they mean. And so you use its own to define and to comprehend what they're saying, as well as have legal dictionaries, financial dictionaries, so that you can gain a full comprehension. And those dictionaries ain't cheap.
Do you think
Heads up.
all the politicians know about this? All the politicians?
Excuse my friends, heck yeah, they do.
Oh my God. And
They
so
know.
they know.
So, for example, Tracy and I, we were talking about the whole race with Herschel Walker and the other gentleman. And we were talking about the woman's rights, right? So, yes, on the public side, it is about the rights that we have over our own vessel. However, remember, we just learned that with the birth certificate, they own the title to our bodies.
And our babies.
As well as the fact that we are considered collateral for the United States bankruptcy and their debt and their loans that they get from the federal. So if women are aborting their future interest, that's a problem.
It's a problem. That's why they don't want us to do abortion.
Exactly.
Girl, go on.
Your body.
Because it deals with money.
It deals
And
with
it
money.
deals with future
And
interest.
they know that that's why they fighting for it.
Exactly.
They want you to keep, especially the poor, especially us. They want
Mhm.
us to keep pushing them babies out. You know, young black girls, they want us to keep pushing them babies out.
Yep.
The system.
Keep you in the system. Yep.
The stamps.
Yep.
Mhm.
Wow.
Because it keeps perpetuating this debt-based system. So
Girl, go on.
fast forward, what we're supposed to do is do proper reporting. So when we're filing this W-4 sandwich, we have to remember we're filing not only from the office of the beneficiary, but as the creditor as well, because everything is 180 when dealing with this public system. So we're thinking that we are the employees and they are the employer. However, it's the other way around, because without us, they would have no business. There would be no services.
Mhm.
There would be none of this stuff without our energy. And so when we're filing the W-4 sandwich, what we're doing is asking the IRS to audit operations. And what the IRS will do is check the treasury records where our trust is established with what the corporations have reported as far as their income and make sure they match. If they match, then all is good. If they do not match, then what happens is you, as the beneficiary, receives that interest, that credit that's obtained. So that's why we do the W-4 sandwiches, because pretty much we're telling on them and we're bringing light to their, excuse my French, fuckery to make sure they abide by the laws and the rules.
Can they pay my student loans off?
Just the way she said.
Can they pay my student loans off? Also, can they pay my student loans
That's a
off?
contract too.
You would do the W-4 sandwich on that corporation that did your student loan.
Mhm.
Let me tell you something. So I had student loans, and I know the reason why mine were forgiven was because I worked in the medical field.
Okay.
That has to be, because I was in the medical field at the time. And, but it still showed that that debt was there, but it said I didn't owe it. It was.
They
it was
still
saying-
got the money.
Hold on. So it was saying that I didn't, there was basically no debt for me to pay. There was nothing behind. But now it's coming up to where now they're getting zeroed out. So so did they put a hold on it and say okay, we're forgiving these loans like they really did something, but now they're going back and they're going into our trust and getting that money for that payment for that.
Yeah. Well, when you signed the promissory note, that's when they got the funds. And then they made you pay the interest on it by calling it payments. It's the same thing with your mortgage. When you sign that promissory note, they go right to the treasury and get the full amount, and then they bifurcate it and get 10 times the amount. And then they give that original promissory note back to the treasury saying, oh, we're not going to take out the loan, even though they already got 10 times the amount. And then they divide it and loan it out and triple it and quadruple it and make more money. However, the mortgage has already been paid. What you're paying, which you think is the mortgage note, you're actually paying the interest that they should be paying as a corporation or a bank. It's all taxes.
Hey, your cash app didn't pop up.
So,
Amy?
I see your mom. I gotta go.
okay.
Huh?
Let me tell, I'm trying to let them know what I gave them. So I gave them a W-4 packet.
Okay.
I gave them 10 2-cent stamps. Try to go buy some 2-cent stamps and see what you come up with. Ordered it online.
I already ordered mine. I'm waiting for
Yeah.
the test.
So, and I actually, I ordered the wrong ones, but you could put it another envelope inside
Are we
there.
gonna fill in these?
But I'll help you with that.
Okay.
But
So let's finish talking to her about this.
Yeah, so
I just wanted to let him know
Yeah,
before he
no,
left.
thank you. I
So,
appreciate it. Yeah,
yeah.
I'll touch with you. Talk tomorrow.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And you're gonna share this with all of us, right? This recording?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Blue.
So
Head out, everybody.
Thank you for
Real
coming.
life angel, isn't it?
Thanks for inviting.
Wait a
us.
minute, she's still talking. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ms. Todd.
really quick, I wanted you guys to look up some other forms. And again, these are all government forms that can assist you in correcting your status. But also,
I'm sorry. Hold on just a second.
okay,
Take a picture.
Give them some
Yeah, I
pizza.
know, right? Sorry.
Yeah, hold on. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead,
Had
Ms.
to feed
Stock.
the dog pizza.
Sorry, Ms. Todd. Okay.
it's okay. But I wanted you guys, so I sent 3 PDFs to you, Tracy. They are extensive and they do go a little bit more in depth. But if you look on the screen, there are some additional forms that you can look up, and these are IRS forms. So I'm not telling you anything that cannot be researched. These are forms that help you to correct the wrongs that we've entered ourselves into. Like, for example, when we stated that we're employees and asked them to be collection agents to reduce taxes or take taxes out of our checks, we did that via the W-4. Well, we can also cancel that via the IRS form called W-4T. You can also let them know that you're not the debtor, but you're the beneficiary of that trust account by giving your employer a W-8-BEN. That's what BEN stands for. It means that you're the beneficiary. Also, when you're dealing with court cases and you want to make sure that the prosecutors, the judges, and the clerks understand that they are the trustees and you're the beneficiary, you can file a Form 56. And it has a section on the second page where you put the court case information in for that purpose. There's also the Form 3949A, which is another form that you can use to tell on these corporations because they're doing money laundering. And they're abusing the trust and they're abusing their fiduciary responsibility as trustees of that trust. As a consumer, you can also file consumer reports on companies that are not doing what they're supposed to do. Has anybody ever read the terms and conditions for any contracts that you've entered into?
No, ma'am.
If you go through the terms and conditions, normally near the very bottom, it gives you a whole list of bureaus that you can use to tell on everybody,
Like
from
yeah,
banks to
yeah.
courts,
Better
governments.
Business Bureau and all that, yeah.
No, not the Better Business Bureau. They're crap. But so give me a second. I'm gonna pull it up on my phone because I took screenshots so that I can remember.
I was getting ready to say that.
Give me 1 second.
What's it? Boston. When you issue school.
Ombudsman.
Yeah.
Can
All
I
right.
ask you something real quick?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Cash App, if it's not showing, is it because you're just not in his phone?
Yeah. Phone number.
You make sure you put the $ and it's Blue Light Angel,
I did.
and it'll come up. It'll say Najim, Najm Lewis,
Yeah.
Lew.
For some reason, it's not coming up on his.
You don't want to send it to the wrong person. What is
Send it to me and I'll send it to her.
okay? If we send it to Tracy, Tracy can send it to you.
How about that?
Okay.
Because it doesn't cost anything for me to send it, them to send it.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, I'll just send it to you.
So just to go over,
Was a consensus.
let me see. So as a consumer, most states have their own consumer reporting laws, and in some cases, we have more rights under state laws as well as federal laws. For more information, we are to contact our state and local consumer protection agency or the state attorney general about our federal rights. So for types of businesses, if it's a bank, a savings association, a credit union, or any affiliates of banks, we report them not only to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, but also the Federal Trade Commission. To the extent that it's not a type of bank but it's a national bank or federal savings bank, and federal branches and federal agencies of foreign banks, state member banks, branches, agencies of foreign banks, so on and so forth, you contact the Office of Comptroller of Currency or the Federal Reserve Consumer Help Center or the FDIC to tell on them. There's also the National Credit Union Administration Office of Consumer Financial Protection, also in short OCFP. If it's an air carrier, you contact the Assistant General Counsel for Aviation Enforcement and Proceedings. If it's a small business investment company, you contact the Associate Deputy Administrator for Capital Access. If it's a broker or dealer, you tell on them by contacting the Securities and Exchange Commission. Federal land banks and associations, you contact the Farm Credit Administration. If it's a retailer finance company, the FTC. So they tell you what companies and bureaus to contact to tell on these corporations and these businesses. So that's why you read terms and conditions of any contract that you sign or any service that you sign up for, because they tell you who to contact in the event that you feel wronged as a consumer.
It was me, Najee. I mean, yeah,
Huh?
Najee.
Stop.
She's getting more than one.
I said it was me, Star. Go
Oh,
ahead.
you're getting multiple.
Go to you or her.
I'm gonna send it to her.
So
I'm just.
So,
But we listening.
I
Go
just
ahead.
backed it out.
So
So
my question is, so once a birth certificate and a social security card is established, then that's when all that money's put into a trust for us. They generate, because they can print as much money as they want. They say they don't, but they do.
So what they do, once they create that birth certificate bond, they bundle it up and they sell it on the New York Stock Exchange. And they also use it as collateral for loans, because what they're presuming is that you as an American, you're gonna work
We are.
to help pay the debt and pay interest and taxes. That's what they're expecting. And so that's why your debt is considered prepaid via HJR 192, because they have not given us gold and silver back.
No,
Our currency is no longer backed by that.
no.
And so we have no real way to actually take care and tender payments to clear debts. What we're doing is just passing IOUs back and forth. So again, he who has the gold pays the bills. So all of our debts are prepaid in advance because of that bond that was established and the interest that they're getting from that bond under the presumption that we are going to remain working class citizens until we're 65, 70. Contributing to society, as they say.
So why they said there ain't gonna be no Social Security then?
That's a lie, because they're still drawing Social Security and they're making interest off of it. There's going to be Social Security.
Okay.
Same way there was no chicken wings.
Yeah, and here's the other thing that they're not telling you, right? So a lot of people are making complaints about aliens that are coming in. They're called aliens because there is not a lien against them.
Shut the
The
front
birth
door.
certificate is not here.
They don't have a birth certificate that they can place a lien upon to own all of their property, so on and so forth.
Romantic with words.
Yeah. So,
And
but
we sit there, don't even
once
speak
they
out
make
the
them
language,
illegal,
don't
once
have
they
a
make
clue.
them a legal citizen, that's why they letting them all over here. That's why Bag let
Exactly.
him in here so that he can get that lien on them.
And here's the other thing. A lot of people that are considered aliens that have a right to work here, they are paying into the Social Security, but they cannot draw from it because they're not US citizens. So how can they say that it's going to be depleted when they're getting money that they don't have to pay out to the aliens?
Yeah, right.
What sense does that? Do the math there. That makes no sense to me.
Girl, you gonna make me throw his computer.
No,
You're not the computer. Throw your phone. You're trying to learn.
okay, so
Oh
these
my
W4
God.
sandwiches that, like Tracy gave us the copy.
Tracy, what else is in
She
here?
said that we can order them off of irs.gov, additional forms.
Yes.
You
Yep.
have to do one per company.
I want
Yes,
too
one
long first.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I want too long gone.
Those you can print right there.
Well, here's you can also
I can't have.
you can also print the forms right off of irs.gov.
Yeah, I did it.
And that's
So
what I
you,
did.
can, you don't have to order them, you can print them off. The only ones that you really have to be concerned of ordering are the ones that come with the red ink, because they're the red ink is transmittable, so they can transmit the information. And those are other forms like your 1099s and OIDs and 1096s. So we're not using those with the W4 sandwich. So everything's offline.
Okay, now, my next thing, and then we'll let you go, because I know it's getting late. I appreciate you.
You're
Is
welcome.
Yes, we did.
when we fill out these forms, okay, 2 questions. When we fill out these forms, I'm gonna make a list first, like you said, you starting with student loan.
Yeah.
I'm starting with cars, I was multiple cars and mortgages, I bought cars for my kids and everybody else. Driver's license, 2 marriages, I was like, oh, my money. But anyway. Two questions. When we do this form, I know it's a process and I know it takes time.
Yeah.
But so they, on one of the videos I saw where they would draft the money into your account. Is there any type of communications?
They gonna really put the money in my account?
No communication.
So it takes anywhere from 2 weeks to 9 months is the longest. So what I've seen reported is, like, I had a gentleman whose package I submitted for him for a car that got repossessed, and you know how they repossess the car, they resell it, and then you're owed like the remainder balance, and then of course it shows up as something negative on your credit report.
Right.
So what we see with him was that it was showed as paid in full, and there was no negative reporting on his credit report. They fixed it. Yeah. Some people have gotten funds directly deposited into their account, and no, you don't get a warning. You just get a deposit in there if there's any credits owed. But of course, you'll see it comes from the United States Treasury.
Okay, that's a good thing.
Girl, I gotta get this
Last
wrong
question
thing.
is, have you yourself received any
This is wrong. I don't care about no
refunds
cards.
on these?
So so to give you my background, once I started going down this rabbit hole and finding out that it was voluntary, I stopped filing taxes back in 2016. So then when I found out how to do the W-4 sandwich, I submitted it and they sent me a letter stating that it's going to take them a little bit longer to process mine because I have not been doing the reporting because I was trying to get a grasp and understand the Internal Revenue Code, the United States Code, what my standing was, correcting my status. So I did get a letter. Yeah, I did get a letter from the IRS stating to give them some more time for them to do my W-4 sandwiches. So I'm waiting for that.
Especially
But
since
in the
you pay
meantime,
taxes.
I'm going to submit some more.
Okay.
So you say do one at a time, and then from there, then you can start doing all your sandwiches. Would you recommend just one at a time?
When you send them in, send them 5 at a time. But when you're doing it, do one company at a time so that you don't get confused and mix up numbers and stuff.
Do loans first.
So
Mhm.
one sandwich per company.
Okay.
Exactly. So that sandwich includes your W-4, 1040,
1040.
and 1040,
And what was the other one?
1040V.
Yep, I got it. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Bingo.
So do that packet for each company. Also, other notes, if you could look on the screen, make sure you sign all the forms. I know when she did the video, she told you not to sign the 1040, but my teacher who speaks directly with the IRS agent says that somebody has to sign in order for them to do the audit. And what protects you from being accused of frivolous filing is signing as the beneficiary. So on the 1040 form, make sure you sign, and where it says office or position or something like that, put beneficiary so that they know that you're doing it from the beneficiary standpoint. Also, I know she said to white out under penalty of perjury, blah, blah, blah. Do not do that. Just sign as the beneficiary.
Not white out anything.
I ain't like that.
Exactly.
What about down on the bottom of this?
No, if you
She
follow that,
said
if you
to-
follow that other lady, she said white it out.
Don't white out
White
anything.
Okay, because you actually changing a legal document, if you
Right.
white out.
You are. And I know in the video, she stated that these are our forms, but no, they're not. We didn't create them. The IRS created them. So don't change it, but just make sure you sign in your proper status so that they know.
So are
You
you
are the
saying, are you
not the
saying
debtor.
don't mark out, like your middle initial? You don't mark it and put name? She said
You
to,
talking about the top part?
she said to mark out initial. It says middle initial.
Oh, no, she said write out your middle name. Don't put the middle initial.
Right out.
So just meaning write it out. So like if your name was Mary Jane Foster, you would write out Mary Jane Foster. Don't put Mary and then put J period and then Foster. Does that make sense?
Okay, okay.
Oh, you can't see.
Yeah, she wasn't saying like to white that part out. She was just saying make sure you put your full middle name as it shows on your social security card.
Want to do it here? Do it
Yeah, I'm doing
right now.
student loans.
Do it right now. with us.
I am. I'm sorry now.
Put the stamp on it, you sign.
Yeah,
And you
it's
get
for a
ready to
minute.
go
One
down.
company
Yeah.
at a time.
Before I go home, I'm going to the post office. I already got the stamps. W-4 sandwich review and questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Star. You
You're
got
welcome.
a kiss on your forehead. I got my checkbook in there.
Anybody?
I put my routing number and everything on here.
So there's.
I'm trying to remember if there's anything else. Oh, also on your
Today with your little hats.
Yeah. We done hit the
On your-
lottery, Star.
There's 20.
She done gave us 20, Star. We done hit the
Oh,
lottery.
yeah,
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And you know what?
I'm gonna give Tracy a kiss on her forehead.
Who got here?
I know. Give her a hug and kiss for me. She's
You got here
awesome.
first. You got here second. You got here third.
Thank
How about
you.
that?
I didn't even hear it first. Your brother did.
But
Okay,
you're the
listen to
only
Miss
one left.
Star. She's on her. Miss Star.
What I was gonna say is on the back of the 1040, when you put your 2-cent stamp and sign across it and put beneficiary, remember the two numbers at the top. One is the social security number, and then the other number is that red bond number that's on the back of the social security. Now, just for food for thought, just to give information, those letters that are on your birth certificate as well as on your social security card, those correspond with the Federal Reserve banks that are holding your actual funds for the trust account.
Okay, so then where I put this number at, Miss Star?
Because it lets them know where your account is. So it's just much faster. You don't have to put that number there, but it helps them to find your account much faster.
So you said put it under here, under my social?
Give me that.
On the 1040V on the back.
Okay.
Under your social.
On the back of the 1040V. Okay.
Yes, like you're endorsing a check.
Check. Okay. I see.
Exactly.
Put the red on it. The red.
Exactly.
Thank you, Miss Star.
Social
You're welcome.
without the dash.
No, give me that, Tracy.
Then you put the red
Oh, I'm glad I got my checkbook with me. Okay. What else, Miss Star? Yeah.
What other questions did you guys have?
It's so much.
I know it is a lot.
Okay.
So I would say take time to marinate on everything. And Miss Tracy, if you can pull up in your email, the first document that I sent, it talks about your citizenship and your status. And at the end of that document, it gives you instructions on how to correct it. The title is Citizenship Diagram.
You sent it to me in an email? Oh, I'm on airplane mode. Hold
She's on
on.
airplane mode.
It got turned down. Hold up. Okay, so you sent me one email with two things?
Yeah, it should be 2 or 3 PDFs in there.
Yes, I got 3.
I'll put them dogs in the garage.
I'm gonna send all of them. Send them.
Okay.
all of them.
My pictures.
But yeah, those documents have a lot of codes and reference so that you can do your own exploration. I will say, if you decide to go through the process of correcting your status, please have patience with not only yourself and your understanding of the laws and how they apply, but also when dealing with the public, because they have no effing clue. When I went to correct my social security number, I went into the social security office thinking, face to face would be a better transaction, but it's not, because they're ignorant gatekeepers. So they have no clue, and they think Google is the answer to everything. So when I went in to change my SS5 from US citizen to alien, they were asking me for like my alien green card and so on and so forth.
Jackson.
And I tried to explain to her the difference between an American national or state citizen or state national versus US citizen. And she kept going to Google, like I was going to explain everything. And I'm just like, I got a headache, and it pissed me off because I don't like repeating myself. So what I did was I mailed the form in with my actual ID card, because they don't want you to send a copy of the ID. They want the actual card, and they'll mail it back to you. So when you go to correct your social security number, send it in the mail, because that's on the private side. and they'll correct it and they'll send you a new social security card and then your ID back to you separately.
And what if you have multiple, like I've got my original social security card and I've been married twice, but the current one is the only one that I only have to do it one time, right?
Yeah, only one time,
Okay.
and use the most recent one. So for those of you that are filling out the back of the 1040V, if you've gotten multiple because of marriage or whatnot or changes, use the most recent number on the back of the most recent card.
You can get one.
This is a check.
And you know what? I forgot about, there were some people that were logged in. Hey, Miss Joyce.
I know some people left.
Did
Hey,
did
Miss
you have
Tracy.
any questions?
No, ma'am, I'll probably be blowing up your phone because I'm lost.
I'm not sure when you came in on, but she really threw out some good
Some
nuggets.
gold nuggets.
Yeah. We was throwing it at her and she was throwing it back correcting. Yeah. She had an answer for everything.
My head is swimming, but I'm
Guys,
gonna be
I
able
have
to
spent-
listen.
I have spent so much. I have spent over $6,000 learning law and studying from people that have been on this journey for 10 to 20 to 30 years, understanding how this world operates and how to operate in commerce. And I'm not going to say it's an easy journey because you have to stand for your rights against a whole multitude and world that doesn't understand what your rights are. And so that's one frustrating thing. Two is reading in a language that one, you barely understand, but two, is not what we've been taught it is in regards to the meanings and the definition of words. And so I've had to invest in legal dictionaries. I've had to invest in financial dictionaries, a lot of dictionaries, so I can understand, what it is we've gotten ourselves into, and then also how to properly operate in the public. And it's still a lot for me to learn. And so that's why I say be patient with yourselves on this journey, because it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Thank you for at least being the, what do they say, in the forefront and
Right.
taking the first step, because I guess she's the Harriet Tubman. She's got
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
You need to go on and finish that law degree, even if you use it against them. Because if you spent that kind of money,
Oh, yeah.
go and get your paper.
Well, that's the crazy thing, because as an attorney or as a law, your first allegiance is to the court, which is thus to the Bar Association, which is established in Britain.
Where you got
Not
to be sworn in.
Yeah, not to the people. It's not to the people. It's to the bar. BAR stands for the British something something something. But your allegiance is to the courts. So whether I do pro bono, if I did pro bono, or if somebody paid me, I have to pretend like I'm there for their highest good when I'm not, because I can't bite the hand that feeds me.
Gotcha.
And that's all attorneys, whether you pay them or whether they're free or appointed. The word attorney, the word attorn, which is the root word, means to separate one from their property. That's their whole purpose.
See, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, y'all.
Man,
Separate one from your property.
Attorney means attorn, separate from your property.
Jeez.
So that again, I see.
Greek, Latin, Hebrew, and everything.
They secret
Everyone-
Yeah.
the Masons and all that, Freemasons and all that.
Masons,
That's
yeah.
how they get free stuff. And they just get on.
Yeah, you say get free stuff.
Yeah, they just say the words to each other and have
I'm
the
talking
head.
about the Masons.
Yeah, they ain't gonna
do
tell
something.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, they gonna know it.
Yeah.
They know the language, they know the hand signal.
Yeah, I got
Hold on,
family
she's
members.
talking.
Walk around.
Most people that are in these type of societies, they know the language or the lingo. They know the hand signals and the gestures that let them know who they are, where they stand, so on and so forth. And we don't see this because we're not introduced to it or we're not indoctrinated into it. And even within those different sects or groups, there's levels to that too.
Right.
That's a lot.
It is amazing how you just said atone. What
Yeah.
atone means when you think about corporations, the big pharmaceuticals, all of that is to take away from the people that they're getting the money from.
And remember, corp, what's a corpse? Something that's dead.
Dead.
Corp.
Oh.
Corporation. They're all dead entities, and the dead can only deal with the dead. And one thing that she mentioned on the video, that's why when you go into court, they say all rise. Only the dead rise, okay? You can only raise the dead. I don't stand up and when the girl walks in. I'm like, whatever.
Just take off the period, comma, beneficiary, because the beneficiary is gonna go in.
So yeah. Were there any other questions?
So still, you gotta put it behind still.
We have lots, but we're gonna let you take a break. You said your head was spinning. Because Wendy just came back.
Okay. Well, I do want to say thank you all for being here with me. Thank you all for the questions, because that helped me to remember all the stuff that I learned. Is like I said, it is a lot. But yeah, thank you for your questions and your attentiveness. And for those that left, because I know there were a few more that were on the call that they left too, thank them for their presence and their attention. And then most importantly, I just ask on your behalf that your angels, your spirit guides, and your ancestors guide you to giving you understanding to the law and how to operate in commerce, what the difference is between private and public, but most importantly, to know who you are as individuals. You guys are gods and goddesses that were placed in this world to represent the ultimate creator. And once you realize what your standing is and who you are, then that's when everything else starts to make sense and fall into place. And you're able to articulate it for yourself, if not for your progeneration. So meaning your children and your children's children, and start teaching whoever you know. And where we learn is by helping each other to understand and understand what's going on in this lovely place we call Turtle Island, i.e. the United States of America. But you can also learn a lot. YouTubeversity is what we all call it, right? So there are a lot of great teachers on there that have knowledge, but with any place that you go or with any person that you speak to, always make sure you do your own due diligence and research the laws and the rules yourself, so that you know for certain that what you were told is true and how to apply it in your everyday occurrences, everyday life. Because I think a lot of people that learn this truth, the problem is how to apply it and how to enforce it. And that's where we get stuck. And we're just like, oh, forget it. You know, I'm just going to keep going about and doing what we've been doing for years, which obviously ain't helping us at all.
I have a question, Star. So do you know anybody that's had some success rates in doing this process so far? Any testimony?
Yeah. So we've had money deposited into the account. Obviously, they didn't know where it came from, aside from the fact that it said United States Treasury. We've had credit reports that have been cleaned up because the companies or debt collection agencies, they don't have a right to contract and to be deducting those funds from the Treasury. So we've seen those cleaned up on the credit report. Debts paid in full on the credit report. I am in the process of waiting for a friend's mortgage company that I W-4 sandwich. So I am patiently waiting, and with the expectation that the title will come in the mail and I'm speaking it. So
I like the way that
What you say?
sounds.
What said it again? Sorry.
I said I'm expecting, and the good thing I'm saying it again so the universe can hear, right? So I'm
felt
going with
that.
the expectation that the mortgage is going to be paid in full and the title is going to be mailed with the W-4 sandwich that I did on the mortgage company.
Amen.
So you do these W-4s for individuals?
As a service, yes.
Okay. Here's a checkbook. How much you charge?
She just taught you how to do it.
I just gave her the checkbook.
Oh, checkbook.
And you gotta start a packet tonight. And you-
I know, I was just messing with her.
She was giving me my checkbook.
No.
She been mad. You been mad, girl. You
You
been
giving
mad.
you Tracy's checkbook, huh?
You been mad.
Jesus, Merry
You
Christmas.
Star, I
Merry
think
Christmas.
you are the best gift I could have given to my family and friends.
Yes.
Because
Thank you.
everybody at
Thank
this
you,
table,
Tracy.
I really
Thank
care
you.
about. And
Yeah.
I just want to share this knowledge with my family and friends because we have been
Found
so
it
lost.
so long.
We have been.
I mean,
Even if it cleans up your credit score, that's a plus.
Yeah.
Because now you can go sign
You
it.
get-
I want that.
Tracy,
Right.
put it
Yes.
Like I said,
Yeah.
I paid in full.
And
I
go
paid
right
in
to-
full.
You don't gotta go for the millions out of the 100,000. Clean my credit report up.
I'll pay off my debt.
Yes,
Pay my debt.
definitely. And you can do it yourself. So
Yeah.
thank you all also for your love offerings. I truly appreciate it. And I'm so glad that I was able to meet Tracy and Ken because their spirit is so beautiful. You guys are lucky to have them in your life because they have a heart of service, which is what the divine is. We're here to serve one another and to share so that we all can grow and ascend on our spiritual journey and our physical journey as well. So thank you again. I'm here. If you have any questions, you can filter them through Tracy and we'll work this thing together. And any other knowledge or news that I find out, I will definitely share. And we can have another Zoom call as well, okay?
Yes.
Yes.
and
Right.
look, we had people wanting to give you a love offering before you even started. And I said, no, wait.
I
and
sent you
listen.
mine.
Wait, and
Hi.
I want them to hear so they will feel confident in the love that they gave.
Yeah.
And my first,
Thank you.
Y'all listen.
my first deposit in my account, my right hand, you can get another love offer.
I know it's right.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes.
You in my cash.
Hey,
app
this
now.
is recorded too, right?
I'm receiving this.
I thank you.
Oh,
Truly, I do.
All right, sir. Well, I'm gonna let you go and I greatly appreciate you.
You're welcome. I appreciate you guys as well. Y'all have a good night and a blessed evening, okay?
You too.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you guys for
You're
coming on.
welcome.
And when I'll be
Bye,
talking to you
everyone.
I'll call you tomorrow, Star.
Thank you, guys.
soon. All right.
Tracy.
Bye-bye.
Put this in zip.
Okay, let me